Republicans, minority communities, and then your father's coalition. So, I mean, how much of your father's coalition do you see sticking with you?
Virtually all of it, and I think this has been underreported and misreported. So for example, there were 9 people on the Central Committee in Iowa that were Ron Paul people. 8 out of 9 of them are supporting us. And so you see these stories popping up. Cat keeps people together, they're going this way, they're going that way. And in reality, actually, the vast majority have stayed with us. In fact, there's a story to be written, but it hasn't been written yet. And the story is of our incredible organizational strength in Iowa, the fact that we have kept the Ron Paul coalition to it, but then 2 of our key advisors and people on our leadership team here were not Ron Paul supporters. So we've done exactly what I've talked about, is keep together the Ron Paul coalition, but then also go out and grab new people that weren't interested the last time around. But we think it is succeeding, but people get caught up in the horse race numbers. We realize that a poll you're looking at is 200 people. And ask any of these college kids if they've done a presidential poll. Maybe in Iowa, but almost nobody does a poll because everybody's got a cell phone. Nobody can get their number, and if they get it, are they going to answer it and sit there for 5 minutes and do a poll, or 10 minutes? So I think kids are underrepresented in a lot of the polling.
Well, obviously the Cruz campaign is, putting out the idea that that your father's people are not sticking with you, and that and he is leading you in the polls. And what do you think is
I think all of it's a wash at this point. The polls. Really, if you look at standard of error, so nobody represents the standard of error.
Right.
Everybody is together, except for maybe 1 or 2 right now. And the 1 or 2 at the top, I think it's still sort of skewed by something that's a settling in that is not settled yet as far as where people are. Still, when you ask people in these polls, have you decided who you're going to vote for? That number is actually pretty small, and they never report that either. It's about 15%. So you interview 200 people, and only 15% of them really know who they're going to vote for. The rest of them are leaners. Who are you leaning towards? That's how we get those numbers. They're all leaners of undecideds.
Do you think, not just for yourself, but for the other candidates, has the summer of Trump sort of taken away attention that you could have otherwise gotten, or other, Senator Cruz, Senator Rubio?
I think there's a celebrity skew to the race, and there still is to a certain extent, but I think it will wear thin, and you could tell if you were in the room at the last debate, just the crowd's reaction, everybody's reaction to sort of stupid vulgarities, and I think that kind of stuff. It's a free country; you can say anything you want, but calling women ugly, calling women fat, things like that. I don't think that's really a great way to grow your party.
Speaking of the debate, I mean, is there a chance that you're not going to make it onto the main stage later?
I don't think so. I think we're in.
No, you do.
Yeah.
Is that because of
numbers? The polls all indicate. If you look at their criteria, that we will be.
Okay. And then one more question about Senator Cruz, and then I'll ask you about policy. So what is the main, I was at a couple of his events yesterday, and I did talk to a number of people who are debating between the 2 of you. Right. What is the main distinction you'd make to them between your 2 campaigns, or your 2 candidates, your records?
I think that on some economic issues, there might be some similarities. He's an economic conservative, and so am I. But on civil liberties, I've been a defender of basically not having the government collect your phone records. I've been a defender of the government reforming the criminal justice system and not putting people in jail for marijuana. I've also been one who has said that, it was a mistake in the beginning to go into Iraq, and it's a mistake to go back. And I don't think you're hearing quite that same message from them.
We have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay. So speaking of Syria and your comments earlier today about the no-fly zone, so what would you do in terms of the refugees coming out of there? What do you think the president's plan?
It's a complicated situation with no easy answers, and certainly a great deal of sadness seeing kids drowning and floating in the Mediterranean is incredibly sad. I think you have to understand how we got to the situation, what caused it. Basically, it was war that caused it. Did we try to make the war less bad, or did we throw gasoline on the war? I think Saudi Arabia and Iran both, they were described this way by Thomas Friedman not too long ago, as basically being arsonists and throwing gasoline and fanning the flames. So I think the war got needlessly worse by all the different powers within the region and the world getting involved and giving more arms to it. I do think that refugees, the surrounding nations, bear an obligation. They were the arsonists throwing the gasoline on the fire. Shouldn't Saudi Arabia accept people? Shouldn't Iran accept people? Shouldn't Bahrain? Shouldn't Qatar? Shouldn't United Arab Emirates? They won't take a person. I mean, they're so exclusionary that they will not take a person. And I think they're the ones responsible to a large degree for a lot of the violence over there. They should be taking refugees. For those who would come to the West, it can't be without examination to make sure that they've come under false pretenses. You know, they had like tens of thousands going across Hungary into Germany. Some 19-year-old kid from Afghanistan. Okay, Afghanistan is not part of this. And a 19-year-old kid from Afghanistan, frankly, is a potential risk. You have to make sure that his purposes are that he loves the West and wants to come for all the great things we've got, the freedom of to practice religion, no matter what your religion is, but not to come to harm us. And unfortunately, many have come and decided they wanted to harm us. So, we came with that intention to begin with.
And in DC, so could you talk a little bit about McCarthy, you know, going forward and then not going forward, and who would you like to see be the next speaker? Or what qualities would you like to see?
I think it'd be better to have someone who's not in leadership currently. I think things need to be shaken up. The Republicans I meet across the country are very unhappy that we're not exerting our power with the purse. And I'm with them. I think that we have not used our leverage. We control the House and the Senate, and we haven't done anything. We can't defund one program, and yet we will pull together with Democrats to raise the debt ceiling. Not me, but other Republicans will. And I think we've got to use our leverage to let all the spending expire. If all the spending expired, then we would say to the other side, okay, you get 60 votes to affirmatively spend any money on any program. There are thousands and thousands of wasteful programs. They all will continue if we do a continuing resolution. So I think it's a failure and a mistake and a sign of the impotence of Congress that we keep passing continuing resolutions. So I won't vote for it. I won't vote for any more money for anything, frankly, and until we start doing appropriation bills like we're supposed to, one at a time.
Is there somebody you'd like to see as the next speaker?
Not really, other than I think it ought to be someone who's fresh, new, and not part of leadership.
Thank you very much.